There are brands, and then there are legends. Brands that people recognize, no matter where they live, no matter what language they speak, or what culture they belong to. And standing above almost all of them is Coca-Cola, a drink that has been shared at family dinners, celebrated at sporting events, served in restaurants, sold in tiny roadside shops, and enjoyed by billions of people across the globe. Every single day, nearly 2 billion servings of Coca-Cola products are consumed worldwide. That's not just popularity, that's influence. For more than a century, Coca-Cola has survived world wars, economic depressions, changing consumer habits, and some of the fiercest competition in business history. Yet despite all of that, it remains one of the most valuable and recognizable brands on earth. But how? How did a drink that began inside a small pharmacy become a company worth hundreds of billions of dollars? Was it really the taste? The famous secret formula? Or was Coca-Cola selling something much bigger than a soft drink? Because the truth is, when people buy Coca-Cola, they're not just buying sugar, carbonated water, or caffeine. They're buying memories, celebrations, nostalgia, and a feeling that has been carefully crafted for generations. Behind every bottle lies a story of ambition, brilliant marketing, relentless innovation, and business strategies that changed the world forever. This is not just the story of a beverage. It's the story of how one company convinced billions of people to choose the same drink again and again. So, what is the real secret behind Coca-Cola? Let's go back to the summer of 1886, to a small pharmacy in Atlanta, Georgia, where one unexpected invention would change history forever. The story of Coca-Cola doesn't begin inside a billion-dollar corporation. It begins with a man who had already lost almost everything. His name was Dr. John Stith Pemberton, a pharmacist, a chemist, and a former Confederate Army officer during the American Civil War. Like many soldiers of his time, Pemberton suffered severe injuries in battle. To manage the constant pain, he became dependent on morphine. Desperate to find a safer alternative, he devoted years to experimenting with different medicinal tonics. In the late 1800s, patent medicines were everywhere. People believed these miracle drinks could cure headaches, fatigue, indigestion, and even nervous disorders. Seeing an opportunity, Pemberton began creating his own medicinal beverages. One of his earliest inventions was a French-inspired wine tonic called French wine coca. It combined coca leaf extract, cola nut, and wine. At the time, it became surprisingly popular. But then, everything changed. In 1886, the city of Atlanta introduced prohibition laws, banning the sale of alcoholic beverages. Pemberton suddenly faced a major problem. His best-selling product could no longer be sold in its original form. Most people would have given up. But Pemberton decided to reinvent it. He removed the alcohol, experimented with new ingredients, added sugar syrup, mixed it with carbonated water, and unknowingly created something that would change history. The first glass of Coca-Cola was served on May 8, 1886, at Jacob's Pharmacy in downtown Atlanta. Customers could buy a glass for just 5 cents. At first, sales were disappointing. On average, only about 9 glasses were sold each day. No one imagined that this small pharmacy drink would one day become one of the world's most valuable brands. The name Coca-Cola wasn't chosen by Pemberton. It was suggested by his trusted bookkeeper and business partner, Frank M. Robinson. He believed that 2 capital C's would look elegant in advertisements. Using his own handwriting, he created the flowing script logo. More than 140 years later, that same logo is still recognized around the world. Ironically, the man who invented Coca-Cola never lived to witness its success. Pemberton struggled financially throughout his final years, suffering from poor health and mounting debt. He gradually sold the rights to his formula. In 1888, he passed away at the age of 57. To most people, Coca-Cola was still just another local pharmacy drink. But one businessman saw something everyone else had missed. His name was Asa Griggs Candler, and his vision would transform a small medicinal tonic into a global empire. When Dr. John Pemberton died in 1888, Coca-Cola wasn't a success story. It wasn't a household name. It wasn't even profitable on a national scale. To most people, it was simply another local pharmacy drink. The invention was remarkable, but the business behind it was ordinary. That was about to change, because one man saw something that everyone else had overlooked. His name was Asa Griggs Candler, a pharmacist by profession, but an entrepreneur by instinct. Over the next few years, Candler gradually acquired the rights to Coca-Cola's formula. By the early 1890s, he had taken control of the business. And unlike Pemberton, Candler wasn't obsessed with creating a better drink. He was obsessed with making people remember its name. At a time when most companies relied on newspaper advertisements, Candler took a completely different approach. He believed that if people tasted Coca-Cola once, many of them would come back for more. So he launched one of the first large-scale coupon campaigns in American history. Thousands of free drink coupons were distributed across the country. People walked into pharmacies, handed over a small paper coupon, and received a glass of Coca-Cola without paying a single cent. Today, free samples are a common marketing strategy. But in the 1890s, it was revolutionary. Candler wasn't giving away drinks. He was buying customers. And it worked. Sales began to grow. But he didn't stop there. He wanted Coca-Cola to become impossible to ignore. So the company printed its name everywhere. Calendars, wall clocks, serving trays, store signs, pocket mirrors, notebooks. Even small souvenirs carried the Coca-Cola logo. Long before television, long before the internet, and decades before social media, Coca-Cola had already mastered something that modern marketers call brand awareness. The goal wasn't simply to sell a drink. It was to make sure people never forgot the name. Soon, pharmacies across America wanted to serve Coca-Cola. Demand continued to rise, and the company expanded faster than anyone expected. But another problem soon appeared. Most people could only buy Coca-Cola at soda fountains. That meant millions of potential customers still had no access to the drink. The next breakthrough wouldn't happen inside Coca-Cola's headquarters. It would come from two ambitious businessmen who believed people should be able to take Coca-Cola home. In 1899, they secured the rights to bottle Coca-Cola. At the time, many executives thought bottling wasn't important. Some even considered it a risky distraction. They couldn't have been more wrong. That single decision changed everything. Bottles made Coca-Cola portable. People no longer needed a pharmacy. They could enjoy it almost anywhere. Factories began producing bottled Coca-Cola across the United States. The company expanded into new cities, new towns, and eventually, new countries. By the early 20th century, Coca-Cola was no longer just a refreshing drink. It had become a symbol of modern America. But success brought a new challenge. As Coca-Cola became more popular, imitators appeared everywhere. Cheap copycats tried to fool customers with similar names, similar bottles, and similar logos. If Coca-Cola wanted to protect its growing empire, it needed something impossible to copy, a bottle so unique that people could recognize it, even in the dark. And that decision would create one of the most iconic product designs in history. Every great brand has a story, but very few have a mystery. For Coca-Cola, that mystery has a name: the secret formula. For more than a century, people have tried to answer the same question. What exactly is inside Coca-Cola? Some believe only a handful of executives know the complete recipe. Others claim it's locked inside a heavily guarded vault. And over the decades, thousands have attempted to recreate it. Yet the mystery has never disappeared. But here's something fascinating. The secret formula may not be Coca-Cola's greatest secret at all. Its greatest secret is convincing the world that the mystery matters. Let's go back to the beginning. When Dr. John Pemberton created Coca-Cola in 1886, the original recipe included ingredients that were common in medicinal tonics of the time: coca leaf extract, cola nut, sugar syrup, flavoring oils, and carbonated water. Over the years, the formula evolved. Ingredients changed. Regulations changed. Consumer preferences changed. But one thing never changed: the company's determination to protect its recipe. One of the most famous legends surrounding Coca-Cola is something called Merchandise 7X. According to historians and researchers, this was believed to be the confidential blend of flavoring oils that gave Coca-Cola its distinctive taste. Exactly what those ingredients were has never been officially confirmed by the company. Over the years, newspapers, former employees, food scientists, and even television shows have all claimed to reveal the real recipe. Some say they've solved the mystery. Others insist they've found old handwritten documents containing the original formula. But Coca-Cola has never confirmed any of them. And perhaps it never needed to. Because once people believe a secret exists, they become curious. Curiosity creates conversation. Conversation creates attention. And attention creates one of the most powerful forms of marketing in the world. Think about it. How many products become more valuable simply because people can't fully explain them? The mystery itself becomes part of the brand. Coca-Cola understood this long before the age of social media. The company carefully protected every detail surrounding its recipe. Today, the formula is said to be stored inside a high-security vault at the World of Coca-Cola in Atlanta. Whether the vault contains the original handwritten recipe or simply represents decades of marketing tradition almost doesn't matter, because the story itself has become priceless. Millions of visitors travel there every year, not just to drink Coca-Cola, but to experience the legend. In business, facts can attract attention, but stories create belief. And Coca-Cola has spent more than a century turning its recipe into one of the greatest business stories ever told. However, a secret formula alone couldn't build a global empire. Even the greatest recipe is worthless if people can't buy it. To conquer the world, Coca-Cola needed something even more powerful, a distribution system unlike anything the beverage industry had ever seen. And that strategy would soon carry Coca-Cola to every corner of the planet. A great product can make a company successful. A great brand can make it famous. But only one thing can make it global: distribution. By the early 1900s, Coca-Cola had become one of America's fastest-growing soft drinks. But outside the United States, few people had ever heard of it. If Coca-Cola wanted to become a global brand, it needed more than clever advertising. It needed to be available everywhere. The company couldn't simply build one giant factory and ship bottles around the world. That would be slow, expensive, and nearly impossible. Instead, Coca-Cola adopted a strategy that would become one of the greatest business models in history. Rather than producing every bottle itself, the company licensed independent bottling partners. These local businesses manufactured, packaged, and distributed Coca-Cola within their own regions. Meanwhile, the Coca-Cola Company focused on what it did best: protecting the brand, creating marketing campaigns, and producing its signature syrup concentrate. It was a simple idea, but it changed everything. Instead of building hundreds of factories, Coca-Cola built partnerships. And those partnerships spread faster than almost any company had imagined. Then came one of the most important moments in the company's history: World War II. As American soldiers were deployed across Europe, Africa, and the Pacific, Coca-Cola made an extraordinary promise. The company's president, Robert Woodruff, declared that every American service member should be able to buy a bottle of Coca-Cola for 5 cents, no matter where they were stationed. It wasn't just a patriotic gesture. It was one of the smartest business decisions ever made. To keep that promise, Coca-Cola helped establish bottling plants near military bases around the world. These facilities supplied drinks to soldiers during the war. But when the war ended, they didn't disappear. They remained in place, ready to serve local populations. Almost overnight, Coca-Cola had manufacturing and distribution networks across dozens of countries. While many businesses were rebuilding after the war, Coca-Cola was already expanding. Its red logo appeared in cities that had never seen it before. Restaurants began serving it. Shops started stocking it. Families welcomed it into their homes. For millions of people, Coca-Cola became more than an American soft drink. It became a symbol of optimism, modern life, and opportunity. As television became more common, the company invested heavily in advertising. It sponsored major sporting events, supported music and entertainment, and created campaigns that crossed languages and cultures. No matter where people lived, the message was remarkably consistent. Coca-Cola wasn't just a beverage. It was a shared experience. By the second half of the 20th century, the company had achieved something almost unimaginable. Its products were being sold in more than 200 countries and territories around the world. Very few businesses, in any industry, could claim the same. But global availability alone wasn't enough. Coca-Cola still faced a challenge that every successful company eventually encounters: competition, because another brand was quietly preparing to challenge Coca-Cola for the throne. And what followed would become one of the greatest rivalries in business history. What if the world's most successful product was never really about the product? Think about it. When you picture Coca-Cola, what comes to mind? The taste? Or the bright red logo? The iconic glass bottle? The sound of a can opening? or memories of birthdays, family dinners, summer vacations, and celebrations with friends? That isn't an accident. It's psychology. For more than a century, Coca-Cola hasn't just marketed a beverage. It has marketed a feeling. While many companies focused on explaining why their products were better, Coca-Cola focused on something much more powerful: emotion. The company understood an important truth about human behavior. People don't always make decisions with logic. They make them with emotion and justify them with logic later. Instead of telling customers what Coca-Cola contained, the advertisements showed something else: smiling families, laughing friends, holiday celebrations, moments of joy. The message was simple: if happiness had a taste, it looked like Coca-Cola. One of the company's most influential marketing achievements came during the 1930s. At the time, the modern image of Santa Claus was still evolving. Coca-Cola commissioned illustrator Haddon Sundblom to create a warm, friendly, human version of Santa for its holiday advertising. The campaign became enormously successful. Over the years, those cheerful images helped shape the popular image of Santa that many people recognize today. Whether people remembered the advertisement or not, they remembered how it made them feel. Christmas, family, warmth, and Coca-Cola. The company repeated this strategy again and again. It sponsored the Olympic Games, the FIFA World Cup, major music events, movies, television, and global cultural moments. Wherever people celebrated, Coca-Cola wanted to be there. Then came one of its most successful modern campaigns: Share a Coke. Instead of printing only the company logo on bottles, Coca-Cola replaced it with people's first names. Suddenly, finding a bottle wasn't just about buying a drink. It became personal. People searched for their own names, bought bottles for friends, shared photos online, and turned a simple product into a global social experience. It was one of the most successful personalized marketing campaigns ever created. But Coca-Cola's psychology went even deeper. The familiar red color attracts attention. The flowing script logo is instantly recognizable. The distinctive contour bottle can often be identified by touch alone. Every detail, from the packaging to the advertisements, was designed to create recognition. Recognition builds familiarity. Familiarity builds trust. And trust builds loyalty. That's why millions of people choose Coca-Cola, without even comparing it to the alternatives. Not because they have carefully analyzed every ingredient, but because the brand already feels familiar, already feels safe, already feels like part of their lives. This wasn't luck. It was decades of carefully crafted branding, and it transformed Coca-Cola from a soft drink into one of the strongest emotional brands in history. But even the world's most powerful brand couldn't avoid controversy forever, because as Coca-Cola's popularity continued to grow, so did the questions surrounding its impact on health, the environment, and society. And those questions would become some of the company's greatest challenges. For decades, Coca-Cola stood at the top of the soft drink industry. It was the undisputed king. Its red logo was everywhere. Its sales continued to grow, and many believed no company could ever challenge its dominance. But then, a rival began to rise. Its name, Pepsi. Unlike Coca-Cola, Pepsi knew it couldn't win by copying the market leader. It needed a different strategy. So instead of attacking Coca-Cola's history, it targeted the next generation. While Coca-Cola represented tradition, Pepsi positioned itself as the drink of youth. Modern, energetic, rebellious. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, Pepsi launched campaigns focused on young consumers. The message was clear: a new generation deserved a new choice. And then, in 1975, Pepsi made its boldest move. It introduced something called the Pepsi Challenge. The idea was simple. People were asked to taste two unmarked cups of cola. One contained Coca-Cola, the other contained Pepsi, without seeing the labels. Many participants chose Pepsi. The campaign quickly became a marketing sensation. Television commercials showed ordinary people selecting Pepsi over Coca-Cola. Whether the tests represented real consumer preferences or not, the perception was powerful. For the first time in decades, Coca-Cola looked vulnerable. Inside the company, executives grew concerned. Market research suggested that younger consumers preferred sweeter drinks. Pepsi's popularity was rising, and Coca-Cola feared it was losing the future. So, the company made one of the most controversial decisions in business history. In 1985, after years of research, Coca-Cola announced a new formula, the original recipe. The drink people had known for nearly 100 years would be replaced. The company called it New Coke. From a scientific perspective, the decision seemed logical. Blind taste tests suggested many people preferred the sweeter formula. On paper, it looked like the right move. But Coca-Cola had overlooked something critical. People weren't just buying a soft drink. They were buying memories, tradition, identity. Within days, thousands of angry phone calls flooded the company's offices. Customers wrote letters, signed petitions. Some even began storing old bottles of the original Coca-Cola in their homes. The backlash was unlike anything the company had ever experienced. Less than 3 months later, Coca-Cola admitted its mistake. The original formula returned to stores under a new name, Coca-Cola Classic. Customers celebrated. Sales surged. And what began as one of the biggest marketing disasters in history unexpectedly strengthened the brand. The New Coke incident taught businesses around the world an unforgettable lesson. Never underestimate the emotional connection people have with a brand. Products can be changed. Packaging can be redesigned. Marketing campaigns can evolve. But trust, once broken, is incredibly difficult to rebuild. The cola wars continued for decades. Both companies invested billions in advertising, celebrity endorsements, sports sponsorships, and global expansion. Sometimes Coca-Cola led. Sometimes Pepsi gained ground. But together, they transformed soft drinks into one of the most competitive industries on earth. Yet while the battle between Coca-Cola and Pepsi captured headlines, a different challenge was quietly growing in the background. This challenge wasn't another company. It wasn't another product. It was growing public concern about health, sugar, plastic waste, and the environmental impact of the world's biggest beverage company. And unlike the cola wars, this was a battle that couldn't be won with advertising alone. Success often comes with scrutiny. The bigger a company becomes, the more questions people begin to ask. And for Coca-Cola, those questions became impossible to ignore. For decades, the company had been associated with happiness, celebration, and unforgettable moments. But behind the iconic red label, a different conversation was beginning, one about health. The first concern was sugar. A standard can of Coca-Cola contains a significant amount of added sugar. Health experts have long warned that regularly consuming sugary drinks can increase the risk of obesity, type 2 diabetes, tooth decay, and other health problems when consumed in excess as part of an overall unhealthy diet. As public awareness grew, governments around the world began taking action. Some countries introduced taxes on sugar-sweetened beverages. Schools reduced or removed sugary drinks from cafeterias. Consumers started reading nutrition labels more carefully than ever before. For Coca-Cola, this represented a major shift. The company could no longer rely on the same strategy that had worked for decades. It needed to adapt. So Coca-Cola expanded its portfolio. It invested in low and zero sugar options. Products like Diet Coke and Coca-Cola Zero Sugar became increasingly important as consumer preferences changed. But health wasn't the only challenge. Another issue was attracting global attention. Plastic. Every year, millions of plastic bottles enter the environment. Environmental organizations have repeatedly identified Coca-Cola among the world's largest producers of branded plastic waste in annual brand audit reports. The criticism was impossible to ignore. Images of plastic pollution spread across social media. Consumers demanded change. Investors began asking difficult questions. In response, Coca-Cola announced a series of sustainability goals. The company committed to increasing the use of recycled materials, improving bottle collection, and making more of its packaging recyclable. While supporters viewed these as meaningful steps, critics argued that much more still needed to be done. Then there was another issue. Water. Soft drink production requires large amounts of water. In some regions, communities and activists raised concerns about water usage, especially in areas facing water stress. These concerns led to protests, legal disputes, and increased public attention in several countries. Coca-Cola has said it works to improve water efficiency, replenish water used in many of its operations, and support local water projects. Even so, the debate continues. These controversies reveal an important truth. Building one of the world's biggest companies means operating under constant public scrutiny. Every decision, every product, and every environmental commitment is examined by governments, journalists, scientists, investors, and millions of consumers. Yet despite these challenges, Coca-Cola remains one of the most valuable brands on earth. How? How does a company survive changing consumer habits, public criticism, and intense global competition for more than a century? The answer isn't found in a single product or a single advertising campaign. It's found in something much bigger, a business system that continues to evolve with the world. And that's exactly what we'll explore in the final chapter. More than 130 years have passed since a pharmacist in Atlanta mixed a simple syrup inside a small pharmacy. Most companies don't survive that long. Many disappear within decades. Others lose relevance, fade into history, or are replaced by newer, faster-growing competitors. But Coca-Cola is different. Despite changing consumer tastes, economic recessions, global crises, and growing health concerns, it continues to stand among the world's most recognizable brands. So, what's the real reason? The answer isn't hidden inside a secret vault. It isn't a single marketing campaign, and it certainly isn't just the taste. The real secret is consistency. For generations, Coca-Cola has delivered the same promise. Whether someone buys a bottle in New York, London, Tokyo, Sao Paulo, or Cape Town, they expect a familiar experience. That level of consistency is incredibly difficult to achieve. Behind every bottle is one of the largest distribution networks ever created. Thousands of bottling partners, millions of retail outlets, restaurants, supermarkets, convenience stores, hotels, airports, and vending machines. Together, they make Coca-Cola available almost everywhere. In business, availability creates habit, and habit creates loyalty. But Coca-Cola didn't stop with one product. As consumer preferences changed, the company changed too. Today, the Coca-Cola Company owns or markets hundreds of beverage brands across multiple categories: sparkling soft drinks, water, juices, sports drinks, coffee, tea, energy drinks. This diversification allows the company to adapt as consumer preferences evolve. If one category slows down, another can continue to grow. Innovation has also played a major role. Over the years, the company introduced smaller package sizes, zero sugar options, recyclable packaging initiatives, digital marketing campaigns, and personalized customer experiences. Rather than resisting change, Coca-Cola has repeatedly adapted to it. Perhaps the company's greatest strength is something that can't be measured on a balance sheet: trust. For generations, parents introduced Coca-Cola to their children. Those children grew up, started families of their own, and continued the tradition. That emotional connection, built over decades, is something very few companies ever achieve. Today, millions of people can recognize the Coca-Cola logo instantly. Many can identify its famous contour bottle without even seeing the label. That isn't just branding, it's cultural influence. Of course, the future won't be easy. Health-conscious consumers continue to grow. Governments are introducing new regulations. Environmental expectations are increasing. Competition has never been stronger. To remain successful, Coca-Cola must continue evolving, just as it has for more than a century. Because in today's world, standing still is the fastest way to fall behind. And yet, after everything we've explored, one question still remains. Was Coca-Cola's greatest invention a soft drink? Or was it one of the greatest brands the world has ever known? The answer may be the most valuable lesson of all. 93. In 1886, no one could have imagined that a small experiment inside a pharmacy in Atlanta would grow into one of the most powerful companies the world has ever seen. It didn't begin with billions of dollars. It didn't begin with a global strategy. And it certainly didn't begin with millions of customers. It began with one idea, one formula, and one opportunity. Over the past century, the world has changed beyond recognition. Empires have risen and fallen. Technologies have transformed the way we live. Countless companies have disappeared. But Coca-Cola remained. Not because it had the most complicated product, but because it understood something far more valuable. People don't just buy products. They buy stories. They buy emotions. They buy memories. They buy trust. The famous secret formula may have helped create curiosity, but curiosity alone couldn't build a global empire. Marketing did. Branding did. Distribution did. Consistency did. Every advertisement, every bottle, Every sponsorship, every holiday campaign, every supermarket shelf was part of a strategy much larger than selling a soft drink. Coca-Cola wasn't trying to win a single sale. It was trying to earn a permanent place in people's lives. And in many ways, it succeeded. Today, whether you admire the company or criticize it, its impact on business is impossible to deny. It changed modern advertising. It helped redefine global branding. And it proved that the strongest companies don't always sell the best products. They build the strongest relationships with their customers. Of course, its journey hasn't been perfect. Health concerns, environmental criticism, and changing consumer expectations continue to challenge the company. Like every global business, its future will depend on how well it adapts to a changing world. But one lesson remains timeless. The greatest businesses aren't built overnight. They're built through decades of innovation, consistency, and the ability to evolve without losing their identity. Perhaps, the greatest secret behind Coca-Cola was never hidden inside a vault. It was hidden in plain sight, inside every advertisement, every customer experience, every bold business decision, and every moment that made people feel like they weren't just drinking a soft drink. They were becoming part of a story that has lasted for more than 130 years and is still being written today. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments, which company should we uncover next? Until next time, thanks for watching. Before you go, take just 1 second to subscribe. It helps us create more research-backed videos exposing hidden ingredients and recommending safer alternatives. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who deserves to know this information. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.